Our next storyteller is Jamie Brunson in Philadelphia, and it's a great honor to us that you're here. Jamie directs an organization dedicated to personal experience storytelling, and the organization has won many awards and is really a leader of such organizations in the USA and around the world. So Jamie, thank you so much. And also, you know, this month is African American History Month, at least in the USA, maybe around the world. So I think, Jamie, what you're going to do is you're going to tell us a story and lead us through a process also in relation to, do you say African American or Black History Month?
It's Black History Month.
Okay, very good. Please go ahead.
Good morning from the US. I am humbled to be here with you and so grateful to be with this storytelling community. Thank you, Eric, for inviting me. It is truly a pleasure and honor. I prepared a PowerPoint, a short one, just to talk about my process. And then I've prepared a story to share, and hopefully Dr. Miller will facilitate the talk back afterwards. Will that be acceptable to you, Eric?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I'd like to share my screen if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to bring you all into my writing room and my process for developing a lived experience into a story for performance. So we're going to come in here and we're going to play from start. Okay. So I'm going to bring you inside my writing room. And this workshop is called, or this story segment is called Shaping Lived Experiences into Story Performance that Transforms and Heals. Can everyone see this okay? Okay. And of course, my name is Jamie Brunson. I'm the executive director of an organization called First Person Arts. And basically, we believe everyone has a true personal story to tell, and that when we have an opportunity to share that story, we connect with each other and the world. About me, as Eric said, I have the privilege of being the executive director of First Person Arts, a storyteller, a memoirist, a playwright, and a teaching artist, using stories as catalysts to help heal people and to meet certain needs. So, what makes a great true personal story? Now, I know I'm speaking to the choir because this is a respected group of storytellers and listeners. So forgive me if I tell you something that you already know. But in my opinion, what makes a great true personal story is the same thing that makes a great and enduring folk tale or myth. It is first a story that is witness to history. And I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with anyone that would like it. But it's a witness to history, whether it be your personal history or the history around you. The experience that you want to tell has pushed you out of your ordinary world. So think about something that has happened to you that made it impossible for you to continue being the same person you were. It could have been loss, it could have been love, it could have been something small, but something that made it impossible for you to continue being who you were. That experience forces you to release some old part of yourself, some old way of being, so that you can embrace something new. Oftentimes I ask people as part of my work, tell me about a time when you had a certain experience. And people respond with something like, well, when I lived abroad, I really learned how limited it might have been to be something, or I learned this about life living abroad. Well, that's the moral of the story. It's not the story. What we're looking for with the story is that particular experience that created that revelation for you. And so there's a difference between the moral of the story and the story. I see heads shaking. Good. So we're all on the same page. Thank you. Now, the story will lead to the moral, but you got to give me the story. Now, the art of memoir and documentary art it requires that we have an experience that we can look at from two perspectives. The voice of innocence, being the person in the moment. Think about your memories and think about this, how we experience our memories. When you remember something from your childhood, are you remembering it as the child you were? Most times we are remembering things as we were when we experienced them. That's the voice of innocence. The beauty of the art of memoir and documentary art is it asks you to add to that voice of innocence, that initial experience, the voice of experience. So how did that moment, looking back, how did that moment change you? And what would you say about that moment now? It requires that you, or gives you an opportunity to become the narrator of your own life and the reader. So if you can think about the experiences in your life, the way that you think about a myth or a folk tale that you might tell, step back from the experience, gather it up, look at it, but then step back and be the narrator and the reader. Get yourself some distance so that you can look at how that experience shaped you. A great story has an arc. We all know that from the stories that we tell over and over again. But memoir requires that you look at your own life and shape the experiences that you share into an arc, just like the stories you may tell, the enduring stories of your country, of your family, and engaging. The story arc has an engaging beginning that draws in the listener. Think about your favorite stories and what drew you into them initially. The middle of the story is building dramatic action. You constantly are having one experience after another that changes you ever so slightly until you get to the ending. And the ending is satisfying to you and the listener. And it also includes a unique elixir. That elixir is that thing which you learned from that experience that only you can give to the world. That's what makes it an elixir. The way I experience something is different from the way someone else experiences something. Therefore, that elixir becomes unique. That's your message to the world. What do you write about? A lot of people say to me, I don't have a story. I don't have a story. But you do. We all have stories. The best way I can answer the question what to write about is what not to write about. So I got up this morning and I went downstairs. I turned off the alarm. I opened up the windows, turned out the lights. I fed the birds. I do that every morning. That is not interesting. Nobody wants to hear about me feeding the birds unless something extraordinary happens. So you want to be able to think about these moments in your life that were poignant.
Now, Jamie, excuse me for interrupting. This is a wonderful talk, and I hope sometime in the future you give us a full 90-minute workshop. But now 10 minutes have passed, and we have 10 minutes to go.
Okay, So let me go right to my story. And as I said, if anyone wants to see a copy of the presentation, I will share it with you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Eric. Yes, Moira.
I just love to have that. So how does it work? Do you write your email in the chat?
Just send an email to me, Maura.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd appreciate
it. Thank you, Eric. So here's my story. As I said, my story is called I Am America's Black History. The promises were real. I have proof. Wikipedia says that the American dream is a national ethos of the United States, a set of ideals in which freedom includes the opportunity for prosperity and success, and upward social mobility achieved through hard work. I'm trying to reconcile that with my Black history. You see, I'm a true child of the struggle, born 24 days before Minister Malcolm X was assassinated in front of his wife and children at the Audubon Theater. I was a toddler when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated at the Lorraine Hotel. And in 1969, when dreams were king and kings were beheaded, I was a small child standing knee-high and wide-eyed, watching my colored world around me reeling headless, drowning in its own grief and despair. You see, 122 riots erupted across America after Martin Luther King was murdered. Some African Americans, or Negroes as we were called then, righteously angry beyond consolation, clawed and scratched and tore apart the only world they could get their hands on, their own. Families imploded. And it says here, all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's right there in the United States Declaration of Independence. But we live in the colored section of a small suburb in Pennsylvania. My family still does, and it's still mostly segregated. And unlike cities, when I was growing up, we weren't insulated by masses of other colored people. We were outnumbered, surrounded on all sides by people with differing ideologies about our struggle. And some of those folks were bold and angry, determined to keep us in our place. They broke the edge of our safe neighborhood in loaded cars, screaming epitaphs and hurling bottles, even at our children. Still, our parents rose early to clean the front stoop so that we could play on hopscotch boards that were riddled with broken glass the night before. Before I was born, my Uncle Jimmy was bused to a nearby mostly white high school. He was a runner. And when the starter pistol fired, everything stopped. Colored folks way up in the rafters, sitting in the colored only section, rode his back all the way to Germany, 1936. He was their Jesse Owens, and the weight of them pressed down hard. He was placed at the starting line, deep boring his heels into the ground. He stares on cocksure. He's off after the starter pistol sounds, chasing wing marks, ahead then out of sight, running with a fury, carrying all them that'll ride, lap after lap, picking up dust, mingling it with sweat, throwing it back at the runners behind him. Finally, his thrust chest breaks the tape, way ahead of the rest. He's our record breaker. And the rafters explode with applause. But plotting grave makers watched the race with clenched fist. America taught me in school about James Truslow Adams, and he said life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement. He popularized the term American dream. But Jesse Owens was never acknowledged by FDR or Truman. Yet in Germany, Owens could stay in the same hotel with his white teammates. In America, my Uncle Jimmy, our record breaker, took a sip from the colored only water fountain after his victory to cool his pounding throat, and it went down like salt. Uncle Jimmy said, I should have gone to college, but your grandmother and grandfather wouldn't mortgage the house. I went to Germany instead to fight for my country, but at night the soldiers looked for us colored soldiers to grow tails because that's what the white American soldiers told them about us. Hoodwinked. That's a verb in the past tense, hoodwinked. It means deceive or trick someone, an attempt to hoodwink the public. My Uncle Jimmy let loose story shards the nights I, just a girl, would stumble upon him alone on our porch, glassy-eyed, tattered old high school yearbook open in his lap, thinning newspaper articles about him, the running, jumping boy wonder. His fingers pass over them like their love. He's rocking back and forth to a sound I strain for, but it escapes me. He spots me watching in the door jamb. I shrink back, but his eyes call softly, softly saying, please, lulling me there. The two of us together thumbed through the pages, fingering the lifelines. In this photo, he's at the chalk line. In the next one, arms outstretched, he's scaling hurdles. And then there's a newspaper article calling him record breaker. I can see in my mind the bodies off in the distance on their feet, howling applause and calling his name. Now I can hear it too. It's like church bells ringing for him, calling for him, saying his name. He stands under a colored only sign watching his teammates. That's when storm clouds come to his voice. I was the fastest one of all, and a scholar too. My report card is right here, see? He squeezes my tiny wrist and I hum with pain. He flings my hand off the page and snaps the book closed, buries it in his chest, and he says, mine. When his overface crumbles, I can see the demon of discontent feeding off the knowledge of broken promises right there on his face. And I run into the closed eyes of the house. Each time his eyes said, please, I came to him out there on the porch. I would have knelt at his feet 1,000 times more just to be with him in his brightness, with the bells, if only for a moment. I've lived long enough to have silence come to me out there on the porch, heavy with the promises of freedom. I've known the sober vacancy that remains after flickering, dimmering bells of our memories have gone. How penetrable humanity when promise is a thief in the night. He couldn't be a monster. No, if he were, then we all are, all of America, and that surely can't be. What does a child know? What can they understand? But I remember this too. Martin Luther King Jr. said, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. And it's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. With this faith, we'll be able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we'll be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. And with this faith, we'll be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. These words I have to cling to, not just February, but every day, everywhere, with everyone and every fiber of my being, that the declarations that founded this country are living, breathing aspirations that all future generations and the world can cherish forever and strive for. Thank you.
Thank you. So that story is so embedded in the larger social fabric. It's your individual story, but it's part of an epic story of your people.
Yes, yes, that's the
Yeah, and forgive me, our 21 minutes are through, but you're working with such rich material, and your approach is so rich. I hope we can somehow work together in the future, because you're just doing beautiful work. Before we go on, I wanted to ask your thoughts about the that lovely African-American woman who lost her life a few days ago, the Miss America 2018, Chesley Christ, who died in such a tragic, sad way. Do you have any thoughts about her?
It is always such a sad thing to hear of someone so young, and someone that you would think has everything that one would expect to make one happy, and then to find that secretly they are struggling. And I think that is something that storytelling, and I know that you do this work, Eric, storytelling can empower people to speak their truth and get help and process their pain. And it's a shame that we lost her, someone so young and so vibrant. You never know what someone is going through. That's why telling your true personal stories can be so powerful.
Yes. Wonderful. All right. Well, please forgive me. We have to keep going, but thank you so much. It's been a blessing that you spoke and that you told today.
I thank you all.